Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Cliff Pyron. It's great seeing so many friendly faces out here in the audience, so many partners and clients of the Georgia Ports Authority. Also, our board member, Joe Hopkins, who has faithfully served and been the Georgia Ports Authority for 8 years and just been a great leader for the board. So again, Joe, just thanks for all that you have done for the Georgia Ports Authority during your 8 years on our board. I'm really... Really pleased to be here this morning. Thanks to the GFA for having me. I've got about 20 minutes here that I'm going to present to the group. I do have a couple of videos to start out. One, just a general overview of the port, so everyone gets a sense of what's going on. We have some updated information here. And then a second video right behind it, a very quick video, the first one being about 3 minutes, the second one being a little over a minute. And this one is the largest ship ever to come to the U.S. East Coast that came in May 11th into our port at the Port of Savannah. And since then, we have had these 13,000 TEU vessels coming in on a weekly basis, and we'll be having our first 14,000 TEU ship coming in at the end of August. So it's just phenomenal with what's going on. Forest products has been a huge driver and part of that great economic engine for the port. It is our largest export commodity, and it has really helped to drive a lot of that growth that the Georgia Ports Authority has particularly seen over the last 15 years. And I'll talk a little bit about the log exports, but Frank has gone into that much better than I could. But it has been the fastest growing area in the forest products industry for us. So a lot of great things happening. I love that term, the Saudi Arabia pine trees. Georgia is just blessed with such great natural resources. It's unbelievable, and it gives Georgia really global competitive advantage. So let's start off with this first video. Those are great videos. Size, scale, capacity just becomes a critical determinant. It's just a big deal in terms of what is happening for both the import side with the retailers and the same with the export, because again, as we grow on that import side, that feeds those export boxes for things like forest products on the way out. I'm going to take you through a few facts and figures about the GPA, and then we'll wrap up. But again, for those of you that may not know a lot about the Georgia Ports Authority, we are a state authority. We are responsible for 5 deep water ports in the state of Georgia, 2 in the Savannah area, Garden City Terminal and Ocean Terminal, and 3 down in Brunswick. Most notably, which we'll spend most of our time on, is Garden City Terminal up there in the upper left-hand corner. It is the single biggest terminal in North America, and actually the Western Hemisphere. And I can tell you, from a guy who's been in international shipping for 30 years before coming to the Port Authority, and I lived in Hong Kong for most of my career in shipping, this product here, this port product, this terminal service product that we have here is really the finest. It is absolutely best in class. This rivals anything that you would see, be it in Shanghai, Yantian, Hong Kong, Singapore, or Rotterdam. It is a phenomenal asset and just beats anything that you have anywhere else in the U.S. We do have other facilities. Obviously, in Mayor's Point, we serve a lot of that forest product industry. Ocean Terminal, we serve the forest product industry, and East River Terminal, which is a terminal that we actually lease out to a Montreal-based company by the name of Logistac, is also involved in things like wood chips and that nature. Colonel's Island, for those of you who are down here in Brunswick, that is a 2,100-acre island that the Georgia Ports Authority bought back in the 1970s, and we have now become the second biggest auto terminal or vehicle processing terminal in the United States. So a very diverse portfolio of assets, but the containers are really driving what's going on at the GPA. While all the other sectors of our business are growing to greater or lesser degrees, they're all growing. but the container business just keeps growing at a dramatic clip. In fact, this year we're up about 10%, which is really phenomenal. When you look at the rest of the import-export market, the U.S. is up maybe 3.5% to 4%. So year on year, we just about double what's going on in the rest of the United States, and there's a lot of reasons for it, and that's what I'm going to go through here. Again, we talk about the single biggest terminal. If you look at this picture, it's about 2 miles long and 1 mile deep. A couple of the key advantages that we do have, if you look at those 2 rail ICTFs there, intermodal container transfer facilities, we're the only port on the U.S. East Coast that has both of the East Coast Class 1 railroads on terminal. We built and operate for both Norfolk Southern and CSX, those ICTFs. So that kind of connectivity for intermodal, as well as highways, which I'll touch on a little bit too, in addition to just the scale of the facility, just allow for a lot of transportation synergies that you just can't get at other ports in the United States. We are blessed because of the size of this facility to have basically every carrier, every major east-west carrier in the world is coming to our terminal here today. If you look at our growth, and we were talking about it just before the presentations began. This is really, I'm not gonna kill everyone with statistics here, but just by way of background to show how the Georgia Ports Authority has grown over the last 17 years. It really began in 2002 when the U.S. West Coast went on strike for 11 days. And that really began a huge transformation of that trans-Pacific market where you saw more ships coming through the Panama Canal. And again, it made a lot of sense because if you just look at sheer demographics, 70% of the U.S. population is in the eastern third of the United States. So again, this is where the population is, this is where the consumers are, so it made sense that more of those trans-Pacific vessels with all those consumer products would be coming through the Panama Canal. So again, we've continued to grow year on year. After that, in 2015, the U.S. West Coast went into its labor problems that they were having, again, as they were renegotiating their contract. So again, you saw supply chains divert cargo again to the East Coast. And again, I look at that we dropped a little bit in 2016, but it's phenomenal as the West Coast came back online and more normalized with all their practices and their operations out on the West Coast, that we only went down 2%. So it really shows that a lot of the supply chains just stayed, a lot of the retailers. And of course, that has a dramatic and positive effect on our exports because, and again, it provides that export box capacity for export products. On any given day at the Georgia Ports Authority, we have between 45 and 50,000 containers that are sitting on that facility. Again, we've been the fastest growing in the U.S., and we'll talk about that. We've been growing on a compounded annual growth rate basis of about 5.4% a year. We are the 4th in size in the U.S., L.A. being the biggest, Long Beach being the 2nd biggest. They're right next to each other in Southern California. The Port of New York, New Jersey being the 3rd biggest, that's one port authority, and the Port of Savannah being 4. The key difference being the ports of L.A. and Long Beach, you have 13 terminals in those 2 ports. The Port of New York, New Jersey has 6 terminals. Well, the Port of Savannah is 1. It's all on one footprint, one facility. So again, being the single busiest, we're doing today over 10,000 truck transactions a day going in and out of the terminal. So it's really phenomenal. We got great balance, again, because the imports have really helped to drive that, but we're about 47% 47% export and about 53% import. So a really good balance. So it's valuable to the ocean carriers that are coming to our port because they're making really their margin and their profit on those inbound consumer goods, those higher priced, be it flat screen TVs, apparel or shoes. So they're coming in, they're making their profit on that, and they're coming to our gateway. But then you have all that equipment there that ocean carriers don't have to reposition empty equipment, less empty mileage, all those advantages for the export market. And that's why the export market has really enjoyed very competitive rates out of our gateway for a long time, and that's going to continue for the foreseeable future. Another great advantage, if you look at this, if you look at this picture here, 35, what that means, Savannah has 35 vessel calls a week on a weekly basis going in and out of our terminal. We actually do more services on a weekly basis than the Port of New York, New Jersey does. So the good thing here for this audience and for the folks that are exporting, we cover every part of the world. Our heaviest area is obviously China. Probably about 50% of everything going in, or close to it, between 46 to 50% is going in and out of China. China is just going to continue to be the global economic engine for at least the next 8 to 10 years at least, although markets are shifting to and from there to everywhere. But again, we cover every part of the globe. It gets you access to basically every market. Talked about the freight mobility with intermodalism. It's going to continue to grow. It's the right thing to do. It is the green thing to do. Probably about 18.5% to 19% of everything that we do today moves intermodally. And that's talking about long hauls. We're developing inland ports in Georgia. So there's a lot of things that we're doing to try to address that, to move more intermodally. And it's going to be crucial moving forward as truck capacity continues to be challenged, and as trucker ages just continue to grow. In fact, I was at a AMA or an ATA, American Trucking Association, at a conference just lately, and he said that the average age of the average trucker in the United States is now 55 years old, and that 7% of the trucking population in the U.S. is 65 or older. So you can see that the truck capacity, truck population continues to go down, while trade and commerce continues to go up each year. So that delta gets wider and wider each year. So the GPA is trying to stay ahead of this curve by developing solutions, logistics, transportation solutions for our customers that are going to address long-haul intermodal moves as well as addressing the short haul with inland ports. Gate fluidity. And the reason I'm going to touch upon this and why this is important for the supply chains. Being big is great, but if you're not efficient, then being big really means nothing. So we really pride ourselves on process, having world-class technology at the terminal. And as you can see, we are moving single boxes, a single move. Say if a trucker is bringing in an export box, that trucker is able to get in and out of the port in about 32 to 33 minutes. And again, we're averaging, 9,200 was in calendar year 2016, but in 2017 year, we're averaging over 10,000 a day. And a double move, about 54 to 55 minutes. So it's phenomenal that you can do that many turns a day, be that efficient, and that really has tremendous benefits for the supply chain. Another big advantage is the last one. You might not think that's that big a deal, but we do have a Saturday gate. And we're only one of 2 ports in the United States that have a Saturday gate. So we're open 6 days a week, 52 weeks a year, whereas every other port, except for one other, is only open 5 days a week. So that added day of flexibility to basically connect with outgoing vessels brings a lot of advantages to the supply chains. Our dredging, which gets a lot of talk, a lot of attention. This process actually began in 1996. And when we received a WRDA bill at the time, a Water Resource Development Act from Congress in 1996, approved the study for the deepening of the Savannah River. So it took 15 years to study it and $41 million of taxpayer money. So everybody in this room was paying for this along with your other taxes, but 15 years and $41 million of study to deepen a river from 42 feet at low tide to 47 feet at low tide. So to basically pull out 5 feet of mud, and it's basically nothing but silt and clay. There's no bedrock under that river. It just tells you something about the bureaucracy of our country when you see how fast China and other parts of the world are building port infrastructure and other infrastructure, and it's just an agonizing process here in the U.S. that we have to find a way to become more efficient in building our infrastructure. And infrastructure is critical here in the U.S. It's very, very fragile right now. The rest of the world knows it. We have lost a lot of our competitive advantage globally because infrastructure in the U.S. is not kept up with trade and commerce. So it gets a lot of talk. It got a lot of talk during the election, et cetera, but it really is not getting seriously addressed, only in fits and starts. But I'm really proud to say with what we're doing here at the Georgia Ports Authority has put us well ahead of that curve, and that's a reason why it just continues to attract manufacturing with retail distribution, more export opportunities, et cetera. So this is how the deepening looks right now. It's going to be about 3 more years for the project to be completed. It is about a 40-mile project, so about 18 miles in the outer channel and 22 miles from the mouth of the ocean up to the terminal. The outer channel is about 59% complete now. We're actually going to be going down to 49 feet in the outer channel, that 18-mile channel, and then once the outer channel is completed, then they'll commence with the inner channel, and again, that's probably a couple years from now, and then again we're going to go to 47 feet in the inner channel. So again, probably about 3 more years, probably about the end of 2020 before this is completed. So it can't happen fast enough. Now you're seeing, you saw in the first video, we're already bringing in the biggest ships in the world here today, and that is a great thing, being actually the shallowest major port in the U.S. So again, there's a lot of other ports that might be shallower than we are, but we are the shallowest major port. So again, it's critical. This deepening is absolutely critical to be able to handle these vessels without tidal constraints, because there's ports on the West Coast and other ports on the U.S. East Coast that don't have the kind of tidal restrictions that we have. So we're handling the big ships. We're handling them very, very efficiently. The carriers love coming here, but we have to get rid of that artificial speed bump of our shallow draft. So it's been a big focus for the Georgia Ports Authority for a long time. Capital investment, and I'm going to use a term that Frank used because I use that basically everywhere I go. I talk really about the secret sauce of the Georgia Ports Authority has been our CapEx. And that's what's allowed us to stay ahead of that demand curve by continually building capacity so it outpaces demand. And we've spent about $1 billion over the last 10 years. We're going to spend over $2 billion over the next 10 years. So continuing to build capacity so that we can handle this growth, and that actually drives economic opportunity throughout the entire state. So when you look at what the state of Georgia is doing, named the best state 4 years in a row to do business in. You see everything that's happening at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, what's happening with the Port Authority here. Everything is so just ties together. There's just great synchronicity with what's going on here that feed on each other and drives economic development. So a little bit of hardware where a lot of that CapEx is going into. In fact, we're going to be announcing before our board here tomorrow the purchase of additional cranes. So if we get approval, we'll be bringing even more cranes in. We have 4 Super Post-Panamax cranes coming in December, which will take us up to 30 cranes. We will have more cranes on this single terminal than any other terminal in the U.S. by far. So again, just building that capacity very, very aggressively to stay ahead of the demand curve, and that's key, and that keeps driving a lot of business opportunities. And I'll just anecdotally just give an example with Amazon. You see the Amazon effect is happening everywhere, and I'll tell you why this benefits this audience. We are one of 3 gateways in the United States for Amazon. They go to Southern California because they have to. They go to Norfolk and they come to Savannah. Savannah is actually the biggest gateway for Amazon. And they're, in fact, our fastest growing import client. They're up about 92% over last year, and they're telling us that they're going to grow 100% next year. So again, the growth has been phenomenal, and the reason they picked the port as a gateway, because as I said, you are the only port in the United States that has what they called scalability, the only port that has that ability to be able to grow. And what that does, again, that just keeps bringing those inbound containers here and frees and provides all those export boxes for the export market. And it's going to keep those rates very, very competitive because the vessels are coming here anyway. There's an abundance of containers for the export trade. So the people in this audience are going to be able to enjoy very competitive rates, although rates are going to start tweaking up at some point. But the rates are going to be very, very competitive for the exports for a long time because we have just such rapid import growth. Everything is tied together. Intermodal connector, again, when we talk about the intermodal, just going to talk about this piece really, really quick. We are working on a major project that's going to basically dovetail with the finishing of our harbor deepening. It's about a 3-year project that's going to tie our two our rail facilities together into one, that's going to allow us to be able to put together full unit trains, 10,000-foot trains, 2-mile trains basically, that's going to allow us to get out into the Midwest and the hinterlands a lot more effectively, a lot more efficiently. It's about a $130 million project. We did get a $44 million grant from MARAD, which we were very happy about. It's the biggest grant that MARAD has ever awarded anyone. So we're very excited about this, and this is going to bring a lot of synergies for all of our consumers. And it's going to allow that intermodal reach to get out more efficiently to places like Memphis, St. Louis, Chicago, Columbus, etc. It's going to be a great advantage for us. It's going to drive economic opportunity for hopefully everyone here in this audience. So really, when I'm out around the world and I'm traveling all the time, in fact, I'm leaving next Friday for Asia and India for 2 weeks, when we're talking about what we do in totality that really drives value and brings value for the consumers, being the owner and the operator of the port facility is a big advantage for the Georgia Ports Authority. Unlike LA and Long Beach and the Port of New York, New Jersey, they are landlord ports. They're leasing their terminal facilities out in 30, 40-year concessions to terminal operators. Well, we own this facility. We operate this facility. It provides us a lot more flexibility, allows us to control our costs a lot more efficiently. So the single terminal design, again, that scalability, 4th busiest in the U.S., the fastest growing. Most global services, as I showed you, 35 a week. Having both of the Class 1s on our terminal is very, very significant. The retail import DCs that continue to come to Georgia because of the efficiency of the gateway is just mind-boggling. In fact, there's about 6 million more square feet of industrial warehouse space that's being developed in Savannah now. That means a lot more import boxes, and that means a lot more available boxes for export. And then fast and convenient infrastructure with great highway systems here in Georgia, coupled with the rail. So again, just tremendous advantages. Then really just touching on, because we're going to talk about some of our other facilities real quick, Mayor's Point, Ocean Terminal, facilities that just continue to grow for us, that we do a lot of forest products through these facilities with more break bulk. And then a real quick forest products overview. If you look at the total trade via the U.S., we are, this is for all forest products, both break bulk and moving in containers. As best as we've been able to identify it, we have about a 24% share of that market. This really kind of slices in this pie chart what those percentages are by port. If you look at the container exports, it's even more of a dramatic number, with the Port of Savannah having a 28% of that market share for the forest products sector, with New York, New Jersey right behind us at about 23%. And that just continues to grow, and the log exports, in addition to traditional forest products, paper, etc., just continues to lend to that kind of accelerated growth. Again, you can see that between 2013 and 2016, this market has grown an additional 17%. So it's not stagnant. It just continues to grow, and I think it's a great thing for everybody in this room. You can see that predominantly is export. There are imports too, but obviously heavily dominated by the exports. And look forward to any of your questions, and thank you very much again.
Thank you very much. It was great to have both of those presentations had a theme of growth inside of them, and our new tagline is "Let's Grow." So that fits really well. We'd like to present you with two gifts. Thank you very much for being our speakers. Those were actually made out of reclaimed wood and from the Georgia Correctional Industries actually put those together. So those were put together by prisoners who are actually being retrained to give them skills to be able to put them back out in the workforce at some point in the future. And so it's one of the things that the governor's asked us to help promote and just show that the folks can put their hands to good use, hopefully. So hopefully you'll enjoy those. Thank you so much for being our speakers. Another round of applause.